Hello, and thanks for taking the time to listen to Reimagining Cyber. New episodes of the podcast drop every Wednesday. So to make sure you never miss a show, do hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you listen. You can also find us on the @Reimagining Cyber YouTube channel.
Hello and welcome to Reimagining Cyber. My name is Ben, and today we're digging into a Windows malware campaign that's been getting some attention lately. At a high level, it disables Microsoft Defender before doing anything else. And with me to explain everything is Tyler Mofitt, our resident cybersecurity expert. Tyler, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Good stuff. Now, when you first started looking into this, what was it that jumped out at you?
Honestly, just how unremarkable it was. I mean, we've sort of seen similar things before. I mean, there's no exploit, there's no 0-day, no complex evasion chain or special thing it does in hiding or obfuscating itself. Like, the whole thing is just basically getting Defender to step aside quietly, because once that happens, everything else is basically easier, right? And, the simplicity that this still works is what made me sort of, want to stop and take a closer look at it.
Now, you've mentioned before that a lot of IT teams rely on Defender because it's good enough. How does that mindset play into what's happening here?
Yeah, so it's solely relying on Windows Defender. I see that a lot. I go to the conferences and, talk with, prospects and partners. And there are a lot of practitioners out there that feel Windows Defender by itself is good enough. And that's crazy to me. At least it was crazy initially. And as time went on, I guess I leaned more towards fair or so. It's not like a completely reckless position, because Defender has improved over the years, right? It's different than Windows XP or Windows 7. Windows 10 and Windows 11 have better, implementation of security protocols to try and detect malware built into Windows, right? It's built in, it's maintained, it stops plenty of real threats, right? But the issue isn't whether or not Defender can detect malware. The issue is what happens when something convinces it to turn itself off, right? It never gets a chance to work. Because that's what happens when you do install actual vendor security. Windows Defender will turn off because it doesn't want to conflict, right? And so that essentially is what the game is. You're getting Windows to be convinced that another reputable vendor security solution is installed, and therefore turn off Windows Defender, right? And so this campaign, essentially, of what we're seeing, it leans directly into the assumption that Defender is always there and always active.
And that's an assumption, really, that shows up everywhere, isn't it?
Yes, we've seen environments where Defender is basically treated like table stakes. It's just assumed to be there. No one is actively watching its health or status day to day. And, that's fine until, it isn't there. And this campaign basically takes advantage of that blind spot from those people that exclusively run Windows Defender.
Okay, let's move on a bit and talk about how this actually begins. What's the initial access here?
So it's honestly pretty boring, right? That's the point, though, right? Originally, the users, tricked, a compressed archive shows up, what looks like a business document, PDF or whatever, but inside, when you open the PDF, is an actual document. It's a shortcut that has the icon of a document like a PDF, but that is actually launching like PowerShell or an executable. It's a Windows shortcut file, right? And so when someone opens that shortcut, it launches PowerShell with an execution policy that then bypasses and pulls down the next stage from legitimate platform like GitHub, right? This is the initial infection vector. And from there, what it does is it's a logging or alerting perspective, right? None of that looks especially alarming on its own.
Shortcut files feel like a bit of an odd choice. Why use those?
Honestly, that's been I wouldn't say new thing, but it's been an evolution, stages of evolution. So I'm sure we all remember macros. Now, Microsoft has since disabled those by default, but for the longest time, like 20 years, macros were enabled by default. So that was opening an actual Word document, and it was an actual Word document, and then you would open it up, and then inside it would have something like enable content, and you would click enable content, and it would lie to you and say, in order to view the document, you have to click enable content, and that would be the trick. That's the scam. You click enable content, and then you're allowing a macro to run from the Microsoft Word executable, which then from there would do the bad stuff, opening up PowerShell, downloading malicious payload, whatever, executing base 64 code from the registry. Well, a whole many different types of different ways to pull payloads down once you're being tricked, right? This is an evolution from that, right? It's very effective. So shortcut files are everywhere, and most people don't think of them as really risky. But, you know, in the properties of the shortcut file, they can execute commands. They can launch scripts, right? They can chain behavior without dropping a binary right away. And, you know, you pair that with PowerShell, which already exists on every Windows system, and you've got an infection chain which blends into user behavior very well. It also looks just like the document. So when I say it's a shortcut file, I'm sure we all know we've created shortcuts before. It basically uses the icon that of the document that you're trying to, or executable, or whatever icon you're creating a shortcut to, it creates a sort of mirror image of that icon. And so you can make a shortcut file look like any type of document that you want to look like. And so a lot of people just initially, it looks like a PDF. You're double clicking on it. You expect a PDF to open, and you don't realize that it's executing commands and launching scripts, right? Nothing really exotic is happening here. It blends into normal user behavior very well.
Mm. Now, this is the part that people keep talking about. How does Defender actually get disabled?
Right. So Defender isn't being exploited, right? This is the part that's worrisome. It's not crashed. It's not forcibly shut down, you know, control, delete, whatever. It abuses how Windows tracks registered antivirus products, right? So Windows assumes that you only want one active antivirus. That's what we talked about, right? If it believes another security product is present, then Defender automatically disables itself. And so essentially the attackers register a fake antivirus. Windows believes it, and then Defender shuts itself down, steps aside, because from the operating system's point of view, like, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It convinces Windows that something else, another, you know, legitimate security product has been installed and is present, and therefore it needs to shut down.
Now, that feels like an important distinction. Can you unpack why that matters so much?
Yeah, because you're not breaking anything. You're not exploiting anything, right? Again, no error, no crash. And so in many environments, there's no alert when this happens. Nothing's breaking, right? It's normal behavior, right? So Defender changes its state quietly, right? And unless someone is watching for that specific change, which most people aren't, it can go by unnoticed, right? So by the time you see ransomware, data theft, remote access activity, blah, 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 data exfiltration, the most important control was already out of the way much earlier.
Okay, the attacker now has got Defender out of the picture. What does the attacker do next?
Right. This is basically the attack that we're talking about, and that's the important part. What they do next is what they always do, right? Monetization with the breach. It's very flexible on what they want to do. Do they want to pull ransomware down? Do they want to data exfiltrate? Do they want to just, you know, they have so many different options at this point, right? They want to log into legitimate cloud services and see what else they can access to. You know, once they create persistence and it's established, you know, all the types of, and they sort of case the joint, right? All this information is collected, and they have persistence, and remote access channel is usually open, so they can always remote in whenever they need to now. Like, this is the big problem, right? This is the initial foothold that you wish to avoid. A lot of the times you'll see something like a remote access Trojan, like Amnesia Rat or Async Rat, to maintain long-term access. But really, like, the attacker from that point, when you're asking directly, like, they can decide what to do what they want. And so usually it's just data monetization. So surveillance, data theft, ransomware, full system lockouts. I mean, the same initial access supports all of those conclusions. You can sort of pick what you want to do at that point.
You said earlier, Tyler, that this isn't a brand new trick, but that's not 100% true, if you like. There is a nuance, isn't there?
Yeah, so the technique itself has been around for a while, right? Fooling Windows to think another security vendor's installed, and therefore Windows Defender's got to shut down. That's been around before. There's tools like DefendNot, which have demonstrated, this is a GitHub tool, like that behavior publicly for years is like a proof of concept work. I saw them at Black Hat. You know, what changed is how casually it's being used, I guess. Like, this isn't living in research repos or demos anymore. I mean, it's showing up in real world attack chains as a practical way to clear defenses before anything else happens. I guess we just haven't seen attacking campaigns leveraging it as we potentially are seeing about to happen right now. This is the shift that matters. We've gone from sort of proof of concept. We knew it existed. People talked about it. We all clapped our hands and went, yeah, wow, that's pretty cool. And now we're potentially seeing that sort of blow up.
Now, Tyler, you are our cybersecurity trend watcher, if you like. Does this fit into everything else that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, this is something new that's coming out. It's like new in the sense that we're seeing malware campaigns attach itself to it. The technique that they're using isn't new at all. And so I was like, hey, I've seen this before, but why is this blowing up now? Right? So it's fewer attacks right now. Try to beat security tools head on, and more that focus on abusing trust assumptions built into operating systems. Instead of evading detection after the fact, attackers are essentially lowering the defenses up front. So it's a different approach. It's quiet, it's clean. It's really, really hard to catch, especially if you're relying on Windows Defender alone. I mean, obviously, this is what it's preying on. It's preying on those people that go, maybe through budgetary reasons, they decided that Windows Defender is enough. But, it's tough. It's difficult, right? It's much harder to catch if you're only looking for obvious malware indicators, which this isn't going to give any alerts for whatsoever.
So what should defenders actually take away from this?
Abandoning Windows Defender. I mean, well, I personally, from my experience and working in cybersecurity from multiple different vendors' perspective, would never just run solely Windows Defender. But it's about visibility, right? Watch for shortcut files launching PowerShell. I mean, that should be group policies there. Pay attention to the Defender state changes that don't have a clear explanation. Treat cloud-hosted payload delivery as a signal. And probably most importantly, don't assume security controls are always active just because they're installed.
Great stuff, Tyler. Before I let you go, any other bits of advice you'd like to leave the listeners with?
Again, this is very boring. Nothing is flashy here, but that's still needs to be called out because, these are familiar tools, normal looking activity. Defenses are lowered early, right? They're basically shutting off the defense entirely and no alerts would be sent. I mean, that's a huge red flag and a big oh my God, this is the worst case scenario for a lot of organizations that choose to only run Windows Defender. And I don't anticipate that tactics like this are going to go away. If anything, we should expect to see more of it.
Tyler, I said I'd let you go, but actually one more thing. You've written a post about this to let the listeners know where you can find it, a bit more info.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a community where we sort of have a threat intel hub with all the latest trends and stories going on with threat intelligence and so what you can do about it. And it's on community.opentextcybersecurity.com and you'll find it there.
Lovely stuff. I'll make sure there's a link to that in the episode notes. Tyler, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
And that's all from Reimagining Cyber for this week. We will be back in 7 days' time. Thanks for downloading and goodbye.